listeners, to the Mindful Living podcast with your host, Sana. Now, in a world where health often comes with a price tag and healing is packaged as a product, it is easy to forget that wellness is not a transaction, it is a transformation. We have been taught to buy quick fixes, to see our bodies as problems to be solved rather than systems to be understood. But what if a real healing isn't something that you purchase, but something you be a part of it or participate? What if the root cause of our pain isn't just in our muscles or joints, but in the very structure of the skull, the shape of our face, and the patterns our nervous system has carried for decades? Some really interesting questions, right, listeners? So, to help me answer all these, I have Dr. Dean Howell here, the pioneer of neurocranial restructuring. And Dr. Dean has spent decades walking the line between science and intuition, between the measurable and the mysterious. And his work challenges the way we think about healing and how deeply our physical structure shapes our emotional, mental, and our spiritual lives. So it's not just about fixing symptoms, listeners. It's about reclaiming the blueprint of who we are from the inside out. So, Dr. Dean, once again, welcome back to the show. And I'm really, really excited for this conversation.
Thanks for having me, Zena. Uh, I'm looking forward to this talk as well.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So let's try to understand NCR. So if you can just give us a bit about what exactly NCR is all about, neurocranial restructuring.
Okay, so the ideas behind neurocranial restructuring have to do with how skulls recover from traumas. So all
Mm-hmm.
of us have head traumas. When you're learning to walk, if you've been around babies, you just hear them thunking their heads frequently. And then people will sometimes get teeth pulled because and that's a trauma event for your skull. And then there's all kinds of accidents and things that we can go on in life. And then there's the emotional things in our life that can cause contractions of the connective tissues inside the skull. And so what we end up with is uh, crooked, misshapen heads. And our brains were designed to be in a perfect head. So just
Mhm.
like your car doesn't work the same after you get a few big dents in the fenders, similarly, your brain doesn't work the same after you've had your head hit unless somebody restores the alignment. So
Mhm.
there have been alignment restoring techniques, and they found out that that all of them were temporary. And I had some serious skull injuries when I was in medical school. I really wanted to figure out how to reverse them. And the
Okay.
first technique that I found that actually pushed the bones back out, because I had gone face first onto a water ski when I was going about 70 miles per hour. And the water ski, I broke the water ski. I hit it so hard. And
Mhm.
after that, I couldn't breathe through my right nostril, and my cheekbone was different. And so I put up with that for years until I found out about using small balloons that you would slide from the nostril into the top of the throat and then inflate them with a bulb and use those to start pushing the bones back out. Sort of like taking a hammer, like a rubber mallet, if you have dents in a traditional car and pounding
Mhm.
the dents back out. Well, I was using the little latex balloons to push the bones back out. And the man that specialized in that kind of work in the North, he was in Seattle and Portland. The guy that specialized in that work, he some of it was permanent and some of it was temporary. And I
Mhm.
became his protege, and
Oh.
found that there were some people that I just couldn't quite help, that it kept wearing off. The treatments would wear off. And other people, you'd hear of some big cracks when the balloons would go from the nostril into the throat when I would inflate them. It takes a second or two. And and then, if they had been, say, punched in the face, and then I was able to get some good pops, good movement in that
Mhm.
the pace that was pushed in, I could get the dent back out and they would fully recover. But most of the people, it was more temporary. So it took me years more to figure out a methodology that I could repeatedly get results that would last. And so I called that NeuroCranial Restructuring, and we started calling it that in 1995. And so with that, we can treat crooked noses, cheekbones that aren't aligned the same, eye sockets that appear to be different sizes so that the eyes look like they're different sizes. Some of the slants and tilts to the face can be corrected, resetting the jaw so that it tracks smoother. Some people
Mm.
have pointed heads on the top of their head, and so this will actually be used to round them out. When we do this with babies, if they're having problems with, uh, microcephaly, which means that the soft spot on the top of their head and the back of their head close prematurely, and then the skull can't grow, so their brains get crushed, and so they stay very stupid. Anyway, if I worked on them every month while they were
Mm.
newborns, up into their, let's just say, a year and a half, 2 years old, work on them a lot, then they come out normal because it's just the soft spot that we can keep mobilized. So, anyway, if you can't breathe right, you can use that, and then we would also do this for learning disabilities because we would reshape the brain by changing the position of the bones in the skull.
Oh,
Uh, uh,
is that possible? Like, is that
oh, oh,
possible?
well, definitely, I've been doing it for over 40 years. Well,
Wow.
over 30 years, 30 years this way, and,
Mhm.
yeah, so, we you if you just do the hands-on cranial work of the sorts that are
Mhm.
taught by most practitioners, you really can move the skull bones, but they drift back. But when you do the proper releases of connective tissue tension inside the skull bones, then you can set up the bones so that you can actually move some of those joints in your skull. The little
Mhm.
cracks where the 2 bones come together in different parts of your head, the cracks in between, those are actually joints, which means that by definition, they're capable of movement, but they usually don't move. So when we do an asymmetrical treatment pattern with a small balloon that we slide from the nose into the top of the throat, we can release some of those joints and then the connective tissue inside. You've heard of the term the meninges, like
Yeah.
meningitis? Okay. So,
Energized.
the meninges is the sac that surrounds your brain, and and
Mhm.
and the sac is made of stuff that looks like that packing tape that has all the little strings in it, that you'll get in a box
Wow.
sometimes. Oh, anyhow,
Mhm.
material that looks kind of like that, and, you'll see that on pieces of meat sometimes, this little white fiber all this little white fiber stuff, kind of like a piece of tape. Anyway, we have one of those around our brains, and then that surrounds our spinal cord in a tube shape, and then goes all the way down and attaches to our tailbone, our coccyx. And so that whole area, all of that connective tissue, we can work with not only with the intranasal balloons, but also with a coccygeal release, internal release. And as we do that and improve the overall stability of the body as it stands, then the work stays. But what normally
Mm.
happens is after we do a spinal correction, and after we do a symmetrical treatment with the small balloons on someone's head and do massage and all that kind of stuff, if we check how stable someone is when they're standing, they will be
Mhm.
worse after treatment than they were before, even though they will have improved range of motion and feel good, but they'll actually be less stable, and when the treatment wears off and they come back, they'll be more stable again. So what I found out is that I needed to make a treatment that would make them more stable right away, and when I do that, then the body doesn't have a reason to tighten up and figure out how to slide back into that previous pattern. So in that way, we can accumulate the benefits, and that I wasn't able to do without adding that release of the skull with the small balloon. I could do all those other kinds of manipulations, but they would always wear off unless I made the base of the skull, base of the brain, and the ears alignment and stuff. And if I made those really stable and solid, then all the work has a chance to accumulate. And that's how you can make long-term changes. And so you can take x-rays, you can take photographs, it doesn't make any difference. 3D images, you can see the permanent changes. They get better and better. We've been documenting this for years, and then we also find that people get smarter. They're calmer,
Mhm.
they're smarter. So there's less tendency towards depression, less tendency towards some kinds of anxiety, the ADHD, people are able to focus, dyslexia, and other vision problems. People with double vision, as we get their head more symmetrical, their double vision problems can go away. They're having balance problems. If we get their ears to line up in a symmetrical pattern, then the tendency towards vertigo and balance problems, all those things can go away.
Wow. That is very interesting. Very interesting, Dr. Dean. And is it done like surgically, or uh, it's kind of extra venous. I don't know the exact term, but like.
No, what's wonderful about it really is that the equipment is very simple. Um, so the main if I'm doing just an NCR treatment, I allow a half hour, and most of that time is going to be body work techniques, especially around the skull and neck, but sometimes other parts of the body for short periods of time. If I need longer periods of time, then I do the connective tissue work that we call howling, and then we can do up to multi-hour sessions. But the half-hour session, we mainly work with the on the outside of the head with the hands, and so you can push and roll the different bones in the head into a more symmetrical alignment, and then we finish using the small endonasal balloon. And as we keep it's really nice if we can do this a few days in a row because each time we do it, we unlock the head and then the connective tissues inside. They've been under tension for ever since your last injury. And then when we release some of the joints, those connective tissue, which are like rubber bands, the head bones start shifting. So then the next day, we treat them again. The next day, treat them again, maybe 3, 4, 5 days in a row. 4 was what I usually worked out. We would work on them and each time release them, and then their standing stability improves and improves. Their head shape gets more even and regular, so you can see it in photographs. People's, you can see the changes in their face. You can see the changes in their standing postural patterns.
Mm.
And after we do that a few days, then it takes usually 2 or 3 more weeks before all the releases from a 4-day treatment, before they're all done. And at that point, if they're happy with the results, then they don't see me again until they have a problem. But for most people, it's better, they need to do a few series of those treatments to finally get their structure to the point where where their symptoms are no longer being created.
Mm.
We want to treat the cause of, let's say, your neck or your low back problem or your sinus drainage or your ability to breathe through your nose or your double vision. We want those to get better in a lasting way. So we'll do a few series of treatments, and it's it's very dependable. Very high percentage results with this because of the way it's so gradual and it accumulates. Yeah.
Wow, that is interesting. That is really, really interesting. And how does mindfulness fit into NCR, Dr. Dean? I mean, is it just a it could it be like a complementary practice, or is it essential for the
Yes,
structural changes to integrate?
it's definitely a complementary practice, and, uh, what we have shown and found with, meditation practices, for instance, is that, I was just trying to think what the name of that church is. The Self-Realization Fellowship. Have you ever heard of that church?
No, I'm afraid not.
Okay, and then there was another one, uh, well, anyhow, I used to see lots of people from this one church that is
Okay.
meditation oriented. They were founded by, um, uh, pra prana
Paramahansa Yogananda.
yes. What's his
Mm.
church?
Okay.
Well, anyhow, people from his church, I used to, work down in, San Diego County in California, and
Mhm.
that's where their world headquarters is. So I was in the same town. Literally, my office was a few blocks from their headquarters. So they discovered me and found out that the depths of their meditation and the things they could accomplish with meditation were improved dramatically by having their skull released. So if especially if you've had a history of injuries that have affected your neck and head, um, that affects your brain. So if you're having trouble with the depths of your meditations, you're just not able to achieve the right mental states, then you may need a mechanical release of your skull in order to achieve that.
Hmm. Hmm. And it definitely makes sense because if the mind is still in a stress loop, even a physically healed body, it can also slip back into old patterns.
Right. Well, the connective tissues are connected to our emotions as well. So, if I release somebody and then they have a very stressful, emotional, stressful time, somebody dies or horrible things at work or whatever, they can undo my treatment. You know, even though it is generally speaking accumulative and essentially permanent, it doesn't prevent new trauma. Uh, so, that's makes a big difference.
Yeah. And also, uh, one thing which I think in wellness industry, if we talk about, and this is with respect to healing, Dr. Dean, that healing it often creates dependency. People keep, are coming back. They are not necessarily because they need it, because as we were discussing in our previous podcast, that they have been conditioned to believe they do. So how do you make sure that NCR empowers people to eventually need less, not more?
So the idea for bodies, especially when we're talking about the standing musculoskeletal body or how you sit, and how your body all aligns, all of that is something that we can define what, physical perfection is. And so with the NCR work, because we can keep taking pictures of you, sort of like the old-fashioned jailhouse pictures, take a picture of someone's face from straight on, take a picture of their whole standing body straight on, and then from the side, you can see when you don't need NCR anymore. You know, you can see it because you could take photographs and then draw lines on the picture, and once you get to a point where everything lines up, further treatment can't be warranted. So, it's rare for someone to get all the way there. Most people get to a point where they feel relaxed and they can do the movements that they want and they don't have pain, and they figure that that's pretty darn good. Or that they're very focused on their looks, and then we will once again take photographs and then draw lines through them, and you can see where people have or lack symmetry. So, for instance, if you draw a line through your forehead, like and through your eyebrows, through the corners of your eyes, through your cheekbones, between the ears, all of those lines ideally should be parallel with each other. If you're standing and we take a line going vertical up from halfway between your feet, then if we're taking a picture from the other side of the line, it should go right through the pubis symphysis, like where the penis or genitals are. It should go right through your navel, your umbilicus, or belly button, whatever term you like to use. It should
Yeah.
go up through the middle of your rib cage. It should go right between the two collarbones. It should hit the middle of your chin. It should hit the middle of your nose. It should go halfway between your eyes, right? And as these treatments accumulate, I've been working hard for years so that we can make these problems actually go away. And then from the side, you should have one line that will go from the hole in your ear through the middle of your shoulder, through your hip socket, down through your ankle. For most people standing from the side, we will get 4 different lines because those body parts are so different. But as NCR treatments are accumulated, we might need to do howling as well, but as those treatments accumulate, we get closer and closer to just having a single line. And once someone is that stable, when they stand, it's effortless for them to stand. It doesn't require the muscles to keep tightening, right? Because normally your muscles actually slightly beat. They'll tighten a little bit on the left, and that will move your body slightly to the right, and then it'll tighten on the right and move you slightly to the left. Everybody is wiggling small amounts like that all the time. But the better your symmetry is, the less of those kind of continuous correction movements that your body needs to make. Once you get to that point, you don't need me anymore.
Wow. I wasn't aware about this. And that's really, really um
Well, they don't wanna publish information like this. Think
it,
about how this it's bad news for most of the medical people to have their work taken apart this way.
mm, true. I agree. Oh, great, great. So, Dr. Dean, I think I can't help but think how much of what we call healthcare is really just maintenance for our symptoms, not medicine or for our souls. But thank you so much for bringing this up around true healing, around mindfulness, around NCR, that the benefits of it. It's such empowering benefits. Um, this is really much needed, and thank you so much for highlighting this.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed talking with you. So
Thank you, Dr. Dean, and to all the listeners out there. So I'll make sure to have all the links and details to connect with Dr. Dean and explore his wonderful informative resources out there on NCR and True Healing. So just refer to the show notes along with this episode. And if you have been chasing treatments but never feeling done, maybe it's time to ask yourself, listeners, am I buying relief or am I investing in my wholeness? because those two are very, very different journeys. So, thank you to everyone for tuning into the Mindful Living. Until next time, this is your host, Sana, signing off. Thank you.